Hey everybody, did you know you can go to colinmullen.com in order to get art and art prints? That's why I set up the website, colinmullen.com. So hey everybody, this week's painting had to switch up a couple of times. I don't know what happened, I guess I slept funny, because I've got this stitch in my neck, which makes it very hard for me to move my arm and look places. Which is kind of important because turns out I'm not ambidextrous as much as I tried to be at the start of this painting. I was like, hey, I'll just try and paint with my left hand. And I'm like, wow, this is awful. Turns out I am right-handed. Anyway, barring that, hopefully I got this painting done and there's nothing wrong with it, but we'll see. So y'all seemed pretty okay with me doing book reviews a while back, so that's what I'm gonna do. I just got done reading this book called The Upward Spiral by Alex Korb, and it's okay. So let me start by saying that it feels like it's ghost written, which is, a thing. Not everyone's a great writer, and so that means that sometimes you hire a company to do, the majority of the writing for you, and then you just give them the elements and try and get them to connect that stuff up. That's fine. However, it does make it feel a little frantic and a little disjointed. But the general idea of this book is that So this book is about depression, and so I guess I should say that from the get-go. This is a doctor who has studied neuroscience excessively, and he comes up with a few conclusions that I think are helpful as a way to improve your life in general. And I've seen a lot of not great people review this book, and the kind of people who would like this book I think probably are maybe not liking it for the right reason. I think that there is something valuable here for anyone who has depression or is interested in neuroscience, but I think that it can be read in such a way that it's just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and walk out that door and be better now, which I don't think is what the author is going for. So let's talk about diabetes for just a second. Diabetes, for example, is a condition where your body doesn't make enough insulin. And the reason why is dependent on what type of diabetes you have. Either it's an autoimmune thing or it's a problem with your pancreas, whatever. At the end of the day, diabetes is your body's inability to make enough insulin. This is a chemical that you need in your body. And when you talk about diabetes, you never talk about diabetes in the aspect of the symptoms first. And in fact, you don't really do that with any disease aside from depression, despite the fact that depression also is your body does not produce enough of XYZ chemical that it needs. And part of the reason for that is because depression is not fully understood. But the general understanding by neuroscientists, as far as, this book is concerned, is that there is a host of chemicals in your brain that allow you to be able to experience different emotions, or at least be able to process the world around you. And depending on which chemicals your brain is lacking depends on basically what flavor of depression you have. At least that's my understanding of this. And that's an important thing that I had never really thought about, that depression is literally, I think, the only condition that is described by its symptoms rather than its cause, which is interesting to think about. He goes on to mention that there's this common idea of a downward spiral, that you're depressed, so then you stay home, and then you don't have that social network, so then you're depressed because you have no friends, and then you're more depressed, and you just keep doing things that cause your life to get worse, right? What he's proposing in this book is, through multiple different analogies and different studies that I think that there's some vetting that could have been done there on which studies he picked. Specifically, he picked the marshmallow test, but maybe this was pointed out before some of the stuff with the marshmallow test inaccuracies came to light. Specifically, that it was a better determiner of your economic well-being rather than your ability to be patient. So, yeah. Anyway, he stipulates that depending on what neurotransmitter you're missing depends on basically what you need in order to start feeling better, and this can cause you to start an upward spiral. In other words, stop being depressed by having a good thing happen, which leads to another good thing happening. And so it's sort of like, getting a engine running. You have to give it a little bit of a kick first before it can actually really start getting up to speed to be able to fix things. Now, there's a bit of a thing here where I feel like he's doing that thing where people who don't have depression just are like, oh, hey, yeah, no, everything's, all you got to do is just like, go and make things better. And easier said than done. However, I think that there is some valuable information here because while it is easier said than done, I think it's still good information that, like, doing certain things will help your brain out. And what's really interesting about the book is that depending on basically which combination of chemicals your brain is not producing enough of, you could probably just read through this book and go, oh, wow, yeah, now that specific part of depression sounds like me. And so that chemical might be to blame for it. So maybe I should do things that produce more of that chemical. For example, getting out in the sunlight, drinking water, all that stuff that you always hear, but also like social interaction could be the thing that you're missing, that, you need to be able to start your brain producing some of that chemical rather than just like not much at all. It also explains why, maybe antidepressants don't always work and you need to switch through different antidepressants to find one that really does. Because maybe that's not the chemical that's super messed up for you. It's an interesting thought on how depression works. The audiobook is like 5 hours long. And like I said, it's a little bit rambly. And at the end, he basically says you need medication and therapy on top of any of these things. And, he kind of alludes that those are going to be in later chapters. But I just find it to be an okay book. But it does present me with a few things that I think I can incorporate into my life. Things that I realize, oh, hey, yeah, I am actually neglecting that part of my life. And if I start doing stuff about it, maybe I'll have a bit more of a kick of neurotransmitters that will help with that specific area. Is this the be-all, end-all? I don't think so. I think that, depression is a much more complex subject than just like your brain isn't producing enough of XYZ chemical. Yes, at its core, that is what it is. But I've talked about this on stream before. There's also I think societal factors and, specific factors to your life that may be causing you problems, things that you can't change beyond just your brain chemistry. Through, going out and walking in the sunlight and drinking water and hanging out with your friends. Sometimes your life has other problems that is holding you back. And yes, you should change those things, but we also live in a world where you do actually have to do some things that are bad for your brain because that's what society expects of us. For example, working a job you hate because you need to be able to have enough money to pay for rent and not starve to death. Is this the reason that you have depression? No. Is it a factor that weighs on your depression and causes you to take actions that are against your innate mental health that would be helpful? Yes. If you're tired from working all the time, you are not going to feel like going out and doing stuff. You're not going to feel... You may not have the energy to go and do those things. It may not be possible with the time schedule your job has. And I guess to some degree that would be the suggestion then that you should just quit that job. But that's not how life works, man. That's just not how life works. So, all in all, I think that this is probably a book worth reading if you have an interest in neuroscience or depression, because there is stuff that you could implement if you do have depression that you could do something about. You could maybe cause your life to be a little less painful by just implementing some of these things that is sort of alluded to through the different just rambling parts of this book. I feel like this book could have been like 2 hours long instead of 5 in the audiobook version. I've listened to audiobooks over reading because dyslexia and all that jazz. But yeah, that's my review. It's pretty okay. It gave me some stuff to think about. It's probably worth a read if you can get it for free through your library or something like that. I don't know if I recommend it enough to go and buy it, but there is some interesting stuff in there, and yeah. Anyway, this is the part of the video where I say thank you to all the people on patreon.com/RevScarecrow that are helping me able to just do this art thing, which is very helpful to my brain and my brain chemicals. So thank you to the following people at the $5 tier or more. Starting with my mom and dad. I love you. Thank you, Wapfu. Thank you, Tofoundor. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Skelecorgi. Thank you, Sanja R. Thank you, Reverend Joe. Thank you, Retrograde. Thank you, Mortis. Thank you, Maliciousness. Thank you, Lost Nevada. Thank you, Kayla Hollinger. Thank you, Gala. Thank you, Gabriel Bennett. Thank you, Egg. Thank you, Dragon. Thank you, Chiptune Glitch. Thank you, Bungle Paws. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, BD648. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Acrobus. And thank you, Ats! Well, anyway, that's all for today's video. Let me know what you think of this review, and also, sorry if I got any of this stuff about diabetes wrong. I'm not an expert. I was just using it as an example. But regardless, if you liked this video, if you liked me doing a book review, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.